Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. The year was 1995. I was a young student, 18 years old, 17 years old, and I traveled to Washington, D.C. Why would a guy like me travel to Washington, D.C.? There was a special event going on then. Congress was awarding the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory the Gold Medal of Honor, which is a very distinguished medal. I think he was the first person to get it after he passed, and he had passed a year earlier. It was at his first yard site. It was right before the summer, and I traveled to Washington to be there at this monumental event when the Rebbe would get the gold medal. In fact, I remember the gold medal they made, which I still have in my house, which was given out, and it was a big problem because they had a picture of the Rebbe on the gold medal, and it was like, it was engraved. It wasn't just a picture, it was molded. Now, you know, according to Jewish law, you're not allowed to make you're not allowed to make statues of people, any molds of people's faces. So what Chabad asked them to do was only to make up the side of the Rebbe, that it shouldn't be halachically an issue. It's interesting, the nuances. But in any case, that's a side point. I have that gold medal. Maybe one day I'll show it to you guys. But Reb John Lewis spoke. All the dignitaries spoke, and it was a very beautiful time. It was a very moving time for a chassid to hear all these, a disciple of the Rebbe, to hear all these secular Jews, non-Jews, black, white, Hispanic, speak Christian, Jewish, speak about the Rebbe in such terms. And I got to meet John Lewis, and he had such a larger-than-life personality, and he was very warm and bubbly. But he got up to speak, and he said something that was funny and humorous, but something so true that we're lacking today. I remember he got up, and either he was right before Newt Gingrich spoke, or right after Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House then, and they had Republicans and Democrats speak. And John Lewis spoke about the greatness of the Rebbe. I posted a little video on how the Rebbe continues to live through his deeds. And even though the Rebbe passed on a year earlier, the Rebbe still lives. And then John Lewis says, the greatest thing about the Rebbe is that the Rebbe was the only person that could bring Newt Gingrich and I together. And he laughed, and it was a humorous thing. And what he was trying to say is that, look, we're on two sides of the aisle. We can't agree on anything. And he said that. But one thing we could agree is to come here and praise the Rebbe. That was the power of the Rebbe. Reb John Lewis passed away on Friday. He was a remarkable man. Some called him the conscience of Congress, and for good reason. He was from the first Freedom Riders in 1961, and the whole world watched as he was beaten, and literally his skull cracked open when he crossed that famous bridge, which ultimately led to the Voting Act law that passed, which allowed the right to vote for all people. And he was a remarkable man who fought for his people, and also for true freedom and recognizing the humanity in everyone. He'll be sorely missed. But I'll tell you why else he'll be sorely missed. Because we live in a time where the truth, you can't have an opinion anymore. And you can't say what you really feel without being ridiculed and without being boycotted. You know, we speak about the whole cancel culture and how we're targeting people for words they say because we disagree with them and trying to boycott them, which is so dangerous. We need to be able to have conversation. We need to be able to be someone like Reb John Lewis, who was so strong in his conviction and was unwavering in how he felt. And he had such a kind and caring heart to him, and he was such a loving man. How are we ever going to come to agreement if all we do is cancel culture? Which brings me to something else, and then to the Torah portion. Last week, it really stung me. You all heard about Bari Weiss, who is one of the most remarkable women, who literally dedicates her life to fighting anti-Semitism. She wrote a remarkable book about it, and she speaks all over, and she has the courage to call out people on the right and on the left equally, and without any hesitance. And that's actually one of her strengths. I've seen many people speak about anti-Semitism, but they speak about it on the other side of what they believe. So if they're right, they speak about, oh, look at the danger, progressive anti-Semitism. And if they're left, they say, oh, look at the right and their extreme anti-Semitism. But I haven't found many people who are ready to talk unequivocally and equally about anti-Semitism, calling them on both sides. And that's what troubled me so much. Bari Weiss was an op-ed writer for the New York Times, and she wrote this scathing letter and a resignation to the chief editor and the owner of the New York Times, which I actually encourage each and every one of you to read because it's important. And she writes how she couldn't have her voice be heard without mudslinging in the New York Times. You talk about a paper that says it's progressive and that it's liberal and that it's tolerant, and yet at the same point she was called a Nazi and a racist, and her fellow editors, op-ed people or journalists would say, oh, there again she's speaking about the Jews. Imagine if someone said that about another minority. It would be intolerable. Yet when someone says it about the Jews, the New York Times, that the beacon of progressiveness and liberalism, is ready to throw the Jewish people and anti-Semitism to the side. And you see it with the players this week and last week who said anti-Semitic statements and terrible things that would never be tolerated, yet people are excusing them and people are worried to criticize them because, oh, we have to hear their other message. What happened to being unequivocal in how we speak against hate to all races? And for me, the fact that Bari Weiss had to say this, and the fact that Bari Weiss had to resign, hurts me more than everything. I'll be honest. I knew it about the New York Times for a long time, that their coverage of Israel is terribly biased and borders literally on anti-Semitism itself. There's no problem with having criticism of Israel. Absolutely not. But when you focus and see, you think about what Nathan Sharatsky said about the 3 Ds, the rules about when anti-Israel becomes anti-Semitism. I think he said demonizing, delegitimizing, and the third one was I'm forgetting it myself. But when you delegitimize Israel and demonize them and focus on them over others, it worries about anti-Semitism. But I always said, look, people say, well, but if Bari Weiss, who is liberal herself, progressive, has to resign from the New York Times because of anti-Semitism and because she's not being heard because they don't want to hear what she has to say, how much do we miss Rep. John Lewis now? How much do we miss a man who stood up and was strong and said things we maybe didn't want to hear but were the truth? And we listened because it came from a place of love. And because we knew that he really meant it and he really cared. But today it doesn't work that way. If you say something that the mobs don't like, you get the cancel culture. You get the people who suddenly start attacking you, and you don't have the right to even have a voice anymore. Which brings me to this week's Torah portion. And I'll finish with this. This week's Torah portion is the beginning of the book of Devarim. Devarim is called Deuteronomy in English. And the reason why it's called Deuteronomy is because it has a second name in Hebrew called Mishneh Torah, which means the repetitive laws. When Moses repeated, and basically Moses is about to die, and he goes back on all the 40-year journey and all the history of the Jewish people back to Abraham. It's very powerful and very moving. But the first portion is also called Dvarim, which means the words. And the reason is because Moses, before he passes away, he rebukes the Jewish people and he gives them criticism. He speaks to them about all their challenges and trials and tribulations and their failings in the desert in a way of rebuke, but like a loving father before he passes, calls in his sons and reminds them of their whole history and all they've been through and says, Kinderlach, children, this is what you did wrong then, this is what you did wrong here, this is how you should have been better here. And the children realize, because although their father is rebuking them, they listen because they know it's coming from a place of deep love. And not because he just wants to criticize them, but because he wants them to be better. He wants to lift them up. He wants them to learn from their mistakes. He wants them to be able to say, aha, now I understand what I did wrong, and I'm able to move on. But how could he do that? How was Moses able to rebuke his flock, yet have them listen? This is the word Dvarim. Dvarim means words. The Torah says Moses was very careful on his rebuke. In fact, Moses starts to rebuke and it mentions a bunch of places that he was by. And the rabbi says some of these places don't even exist. Lavan and Tophel, the Jews never visited there. And the rabbis say that Moses, with mentioning these places, was insinuating the things that happened. Lavan goes on the man, which was white, and he was trying to remind the Jews of when they criticized and complained about the man, which was so delicious because it had one taste. What Moses was doing is he was rebuking the Jewish people, the rabbis say, without trying to embarrass them. He was being subtle. Sometimes he was just hinting without trying to hurt them. And that's why the Jews were able to listen and come close and understand that this was coming from a place of love and a place of care. And they listened and they took lesson. Oh, how do we miss Moses? How do we miss the way he rebuked? The true leader who was able to lift us up through love and tell us the things we did wrong and have us rectify it because we knew it was someone who loved us, someone who didn't want to embarrass us, someone who didn't want to insult us. He didn't want to hurt us. He just wanted us to be better. He just wanted us to reach our potential. He just wanted us to be the people we could be. And that's what we sorely miss now. Reb John Lewis was a strong man. He had words that were unambiguous. He said what he felt, but it came from a place of love. When Barry Weiss can't be an op-ed journal in the New York Times because she has to be afraid of anti-Semitism and the cancel culture, where have we come to? We need Moses. We need rebuke that comes from a gentle place. We need to listen to people when they say it from a place of love. We need more people like Reb John Lewis. May his soul rest in peace. I encourage us all that as we get to the 9 days to take these lessons to life. How did Reb John Lewis say? The only person that could bring us together, Newt Gingrich and Reb John Lewis, was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You know why? You know why the Lubavitcher Rebbe was ready and able to bring them together? Because it came from a place of love. Because the Rebbe's love was unconditional. And even if the Rebbe had to say something sometimes that was strong and that was criticism, you knew it came from love. And it was said in a way of love. And that's why he was able to unite all sides together. That's what we need more than ever now in America. Moshe's words of rebuke, coming from a place of love. May Hashem bless us all and bring us together and unite us and show us love and care one for another. Have a great Sunday.